Chapter of Character Building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 31. Substance versus Shadow. You are here for the purpose of getting an education. Now, one of the results of an education is to increase a person's wants. You take the ordinary person who lives on a plantation, and so long as that person is ignorant, he is content to live in a cabin with one room in which he has a skillet, a bedstead, or an apology for one, a table, and a few chairs or stools. He is content if he has fat meat, cornbread, and peas on the table to eat. And for clothing he is satisfied to wear jeans and Osnaburg himself, and to have his wife wear a calico dress and a 25-cent hat. But as soon as that man becomes educated, he feels that he must have a house with at least 2 or 3 rooms in it, furnished with neat and substantial furniture. Instead of jeans and Osnaburg for clothes, he wants decent woolen cloth, neat-fitting shoes, and a white collar and a necktie, things which he never thought of wearing before he became educated. Sometimes he even thinks that he must have jewelry. So you see, the result of education is to increase a person's wants. Now, the crisis in that person's affairs comes when the question arises whether his education has increased his ability to supply his wants. Such ability, I claim, is one of the results of industrial education. But such an education as that, while we are getting culture along all the lines that in any degree tend to increase the wants of a person, we are in the meantime getting skill to increase our ability to supply these wants. And unless we have this ability, we will find, sooner or later, that instead of going forward, we are going backward. I think that the temptation for us, especially for those who are only half educated, is to try to get hold of a certain kind of shallow culture, instead of getting hold of real education, of property and material prosperity. You who study history know how the Pilgrim Fathers, who landed at Plymouth Rock in the bleak winter of 1620, were willing to wear homespun clothes, and to be married in them, if necessary, and to have a wedding that in all would not cost more than $4, I suppose. On the other hand, when one of our boys wants to get married now, he must have a wedding that costs not less than $150. His wife must have a dress with a long train, and he must have a Prince Albert broadcloth coat that he either rents or buys on the installment plan. They think that they must have a bevy of waiting bridesmaids, and there must be a line of hacks standing on the outside of the church door that will cost him not less than $25. Then, after the ceremony, where do these people go to live? The chances are the young man who has been to all this expense for the sake of the show of it takes his bride to live in a small cabin with only 2 rooms, sometimes only 1 room, rented at that. This is what I mean by getting the superficial culture before the dollars are made, grasping at the shadow instead of the substance. Now what we want to do here is to send out a set of young men and young women who will go into the communities where such mistakes as these are made, and show the people by example and by work how much better it is to get married for $4 and to pay as you go, than to get married for $150 and then pay $4 a month to live in a rented cabin. When I go to New York or to any large city, there is nothing more discouraging than to see people of this very class I am speaking of, people who seek the superficial culture, the shadow, rather than the substantial dollars and education. If you stand for a few minutes on any of the fashionable streets in the northern cities, you will see these elaborately dressed men, wearing $5 hats on heads that at most are not worth more than 50 cents. This is the class of people who have got just enough education to make them want everything they see, but who have not got enough to make them able to get what they want, unless they go beyond their means to do so. A superficial education, too, makes us inclined to seek show in other things besides dress. We are inclined, for one thing, to seek to show off in the use of titles. I remember that once I was introduced to a company of about 60 men, and out of the whole number there were only 6 who were not doctors, professors, or colonels, or who did not have some title. I must say I thought more of the 6 who were just plain misters than I did of all the rest, for among the others there were some very hard-looking doctors and professors. An over-desire for these things shows a shallowness in us which makes us ridiculous. We want to stop making that kind of mistake. If you are a mister, encourage the people to call you by that name. If you are a minister and preach interesting and instructive sermons, people are going to be impressed by what you say and not by the title you bear. The title is the shadow. What you say is the substance. When a person is simple, he is on the strong side. People not only have more respect for him, but he accomplishes more. I was once at a memorial meeting held in honor of a man who had done a great and useful work, not only for the race, but for the school with which he had been connected. After about 2 hours of speech making, somebody took the platform and said that a collection ought to be taken up for the benefit of the school which this man had worked so hard for, to show the appreciation which those present felt for this man's service. After a good deal of talk, $6.65 was collected. Then the question was raised again as to what was going to be done with this money, just how it was to be donated to the school. The meeting had passed a set of resolutions testifying to the high character of the man and the worth of his work. Somebody suggested that these resolutions be engrossed and sent to the school. This was a big word, and the people liked the sound of it. Upon inquiry, it was found that it would cost $6 to have the resolutions engrossed. It was voted to have this done, and it was done, when the resolutions would have done just as much good typewritten at a cost of 25 cents. But the meeting paid out the $6 and sent the engrossed copy of the resolutions down to the school, along with the 65 cents left to be expended for the help of the school. That, it seems, was another case of grasping the shadow instead of the substance. The engrossed resolutions were the shadow. The 65 cents were all that was left of the substance. In all these matters, we need speedy and effective reforms. We want you to go out into the world and use your influence towards securing these reforms. There are too many people in the world who would give their whole lives to grasping at the shadow instead of the substance, grasping at a sham instead of real worth. We want you to teach by word and action simple, right, and honest living. End of chapter 31. Substance versus Shadow. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales. Chapter of Character Building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 32. Character as shown in dress. It is surprising how much we can tell about a person's character by his dress. I think it is very seldom that we cannot tell whether a person is ignorant or educated simply by his dress. And there are some few plain facts about dress that I am going to mention to you tonight. While it is hard to lay down any rules as to how we must dress, I think there are some well-defined principles of dress to which all well-educated persons will conform. I think we will all agree that our dress should be clean. There is little excuse for persons wearing filthy clothes. I think we all will agree as to that. It is disgraceful for a man to go about with ragged clothes, or with clothes fastened together with pins where buttons ought to be. It is disgraceful for a girl to go about with a soiled apron, or with her clothes pinned together. Our clothes should be kept clean and in good repair. Thus far, I think, we shall have no disagreement. But there are some people who make the mistake of giving their whole mind to the subject of dress. From the very beginning of the week, you will find that a great part of their thought and attention is given to planning what they are going to wear the next Sunday. Some people will go in rags all through the week in order to have something showy to wear on Sunday. I think we should respect Sunday by putting on something different from what we wear during the week, if we can. Although, of course, these things are largely governed by our station in life. But even then, it certainly is inappropriate to wear our most showy clothes on that day. Dress in the way that your pocket will allow. There are some persons who not only employ all their thoughts in considering what they shall wear, but also spend all their money on their clothes. There are some persons who live for the sake of dress. These persons are usually denominated fops. I think the people in the northern cities are the worst in this respect. If you go through 6th Avenue in New York or Cambridge Street in Boston, you will see many of these fops, who perhaps earn about $20 a month, standing on the street corners with kid gloves on, cigars between their lips, and high hats. Now that kind of a person is a foolish fop, and one whom we do not care to have in this institution. There is no more foolish person than the one who spends all he makes, and sometimes more, on dress. Then, too, I think there are persons who make mistakes in the matter of ornaments, what we call jewellery. You will find many a man whose income is not $20 a month, wearing a great brass watch chain with so much brass in it that you can almost smell it. You will see men and women with 3 or 4 brass finger rings, or women with brass earrings. Do you know that one of the most common mistakes among the masses of our people in the country is throwing away their money on cheap jewellery? Do you know that they will come into town to the stores and spend their money on jewellery worth about 10 cents apiece, jewellery that you actually can get for $6, and a bushel $7 at wholesale? Our people spend thousands of dollars every year for this cheap jewellery. If there is a young man or a young woman here who likes jewellery and is going to indulge in it, be sure to get that which is modest. Another mistake that some of our people make is in wearing flashy or loud dressy clothing, dress in which bright colours and red ribbons predominate. Our dress should be modest, with few colours. We often make a mistake in getting shoes about 2 sizes too small. I saw a girl this morning in perfect misery, simply because she had bought and was trying to wear a pair of shoes about 2 sizes too small. Such people simply punish their feet to make people think they have small feet, though it is just as honourable to have a large foot as a small one. There is no difference. Then we make another mistake in buying cheap, showy shoes simply because they have a gloss on them. Such shoes are made to attract attention, and not for comfort or durability. When you are spending your money for shoes, be sure that you get something good, something that will last you. Do not buy those worthless things which, when they come in contact with water, will shrivel up, because they are made of cheap material. A man cannot respect a girl who punishes her feet in order to make them look small. Then another thing. Some of us think we can improve our color. Some get flour, and others get other kinds of mixtures, which are called face powders. There is no use for this. Any man will lose respect for a girl who abuses herself in this way. Only get something into your head, and then you will find that these matters of dress will adjust themselves. While some of you do not dress so well as you might, yet, if you will give the contents of your heads the proper attention, you will find that the matter of dress will not trouble you. You can get dresses and clothes after you have secured your education. But now is the only time that you have in which to secure the education. End of chapter 32. Character as shown in dress. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales. Of character building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 33. Sing the Old Songs. There is no part of our chapel exercises that gives me more pleasure than the beautiful Negro melodies which you sing. I believe there is no part of the service more truly spiritual, more elevating. Wherever you go, after you leave this school, I hope that you will never give up the singing of these songs. If you go out to have schools of your own, have your pupils sing them as you have sung them here, and teach them to see the beauty which dwells in these songs. When in New York, not long ago, I had the pleasure of conversing with Prince Henry of Prussia. He spoke particularly of the beauty of these songs, and said that in his own home in Germany, he and his family often sing them. He asked if there was any printed collection of these songs, that a copy might be sent him, and I have since then forwarded to him a copy of the Book of Plantation Melodies, collected and published under the auspices of Hampton Institute. When Christ was upon this earth, he said, "A little child shall lead them." Whence comes this supreme power of leadership? In this age, when we hear so much said about leaders of men, about successful leadership, we do well to stop to consider this admonition of the Saviour. Some are said to lead in business, others in education, others in politics or in religion. What is the explanation of "a little child shall lead them"? Simply this: a little child, under all circumstances, is its simple, pure, sweet self, never appearing big when it is little, never appearing learned when it is ignorant, never appearing wealthy when it is in poverty, never appearing important when it is unimportant. In a word, the life of the child is founded upon the great and immutable, and yet simple, tender, and delicate laws of nature. There is no pretense, there is no mockery. There is an unconscious, beautiful, strong clinging to truth. And it is this divine quality, in child or in man, in Jew or Gentile, in Christian or Mohammedan, in the ancient world or in the modern world, in a black man or in a white man, that always has led men and moulded their activity. The men who have been brave enough, wise enough, simple enough, self-denying enough to plant themselves upon this rock of truth, and there stand, have in the end drawn the world unto them, even as Christ said, I will draw all men unto me. Such a man was Luther. Such a man was Wesley. Such a man was Carlyle. Such a man was Cromwell. Such were Garrison and Phillips. Such was Abraham Lincoln. And such was our own great Frederick Douglass. The thing aimed at by all great souls has been to bring men and races back to the simplicity and purity of childhood, back to reality. What is the most original product with which the Negro race stands accredited? Yes, I am almost ready to add, with which America stands accredited. Without hesitation I answer, those beautiful, weird, quaint, sweet melodies which were the simple, childlike expression of the anguish, the joy, the hopes, the burdens, the faith, the trials of our forefathers, who were the yoke of slavery. Why are they the admiration of the world? Why does every attempt at improvement spoil them? Why do they never fail to touch the tenderest chord, to bring tears from the eyes of rich and poor, from king and humblest toiler alike? Listen how in this beautiful song the soul in trouble is told not to go to houses and temples made by man, but to get close to nature. If you want to see Jesus, go in the wilderness. Go in the wilderness. Go in the wilderness. Go in the wilderness. If you want to see Jesus, go in the wilderness, leaning on the Lord. Oh, brother, how do you feel when you come out of the wilderness? Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Oh, brother, how do you feel when you come out the wilderness, leaning on the Lord? Then, in another, hear how our foreparents broke through all the deceptions and allurements of false wealth, and in their long days of weariness, expressed their faith in a place where every day would be one of rest. Oh, religion is a fortune. I really do believe. Oh, religion is a fortune. I really do believe. Oh, religion is a fortune. I really do believe. Where Sabbaths have no end. Where you been, poor mourner? Where you been so long? Been down in the valley for to pray, and I ain't done praying yet. Then how, when oppressed by years of servitude to which others thought there would be no end, we hear them break out into quaint and wild bursts of appeal to fact. My Lord delivered Daniel. My Lord delivered Daniel. My Lord delivered Daniel. Why can't he deliver me? I met Pilgrim on the way, and I asked him where he's going. I'm bound for Canaan's happy land, and this is the shouting band. Go on. He delivered Daniel from the lion's den, Jonah from the belly of the whale, and the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace. Then why not every man? Or, when the burden seemed almost too great for human body to endure, there came this simple, childlike prayer. O Lord, oh my good Lord, keep me from sinking down. O Lord, oh my good Lord, keep me from sinking down. I tell you what I mean to do. Keep me from sinking down. I mean to go to heaven too. Keep me from sinking down. Or what could go more directly to nature's heart than the pathetic, yet hopeful, trustful outburst of the little slave boy who was to be taken from his mother to be sold into the far South, when it seemed to him that all earthly happiness was forever blighted. Hear him. I'm gwine to join The great association. I'm gwine to join the great association. I'm gwine to join the great association. Then my little soul's gwine to shine, shine. Then my little soul's gwine to shine along. Oh, I'm gwine to climb up Jacob's ladder. Then my little soul's gwine to shine, shine. Then my little soul's gwine to shine along. Oh, I'm gwine to climb up higher and higher. Then my little soul's gwine to, etc. I'm gwine to sit at the welcome table. I'm gwine to feast off milk and honey. I'm gwine to tell God how He saved me. Then my little soul's gonna shine, shine. Then my little soul's gonna shine along. Oh! And so it has ever been. So it is, and ever will be. The world, regardless of race, or colour, or condition, admires and approves a real thing. But sham, buffoonery, mere imitation, mere superficiality, never has brought success and never will bring it. An individual or a race that is strong enough, is wise enough, to disregard makeshifts, customs, prejudices, alluring temptations, deceptions, imitations, to throw off the mask of unreality and plant itself deep down in the clay, or on the solid granite of nature, is the individual or the race that will crawl up, struggle up, yes, even burst up, and in the effort of doing so will gain a strength that will command for it respect and recognition. Before an individual or a race thus equipped, race prejudice, senseless customs, oppressions, will hide their faces forever in blushing shame. End of chapter 33. Sing the Old Songs. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales. Of character building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 34. Getting Down to Mother Earth. One of the highest ambitions of every man leaving Tuskegee Institute should be to help the people of his race find bottom, find bedrock, and then help them to stand upon that foundation. If we, who are interested in the school, can help you to do this, we shall count ourselves satisfied. And until the bedrock of our life is found, and until we are planted thereon, all else is but plaster, but make-believe, but the paper on the walls of a house without framework. That is one of the stepping stones with which nature has provided us. Here the path is plain, if we have the courage to follow it. 85% of the people of the Negro race live, or attempt to live, by some form of agriculture. If we would save the race and lift it up, here is the great opportunity around which, in a large measure, individual, organized, religious and secular effort should center for the next 50 years. But to do this, we must take advantage of the forces at hand. We must stand upon our own feet, and not upon a foundation supplied by another. We must begin our growth where our civilization finds us, and not try to begin on some other civilization. To illustrate what I mean, we need not go to another race, nor very far from home. In a little town in Alabama, there was a sturdy, industrious black man who for nearly 20 years had lived upon rented land, had hired mules and horses to work that land, and had mortgaged his crops to secure food and clothes. He had driven to church on Sunday in a buggy that was not his. and he wore good-looking clothes that were not paid for. In outward appearance he seemed to prosper. He seemed to be what the white men about him were. But this black man knew that he was trying to stand upon an imperfect basis. And so, one day, about a dozen years ago, he made up his mind that henceforth he would be himself, that he would stand upon his own foundation. He told the white man to take back his mules, to take back his wagon and buggy, and he gave up the rented land. He had resolved to be a man. A few acres of land were secured. He made his bed in the cottonseed at night. He hired a boy to come to his place at night, and by moonlight he pulled a plough which the boy guided. In this way a cotton crop was made free from debt. With the small surplus which he got from this, he bought an ox, and with this beast made a second crop free from debt. A mule was bought, and then another. Today, this man is the owner of a comfortable home, is a stockholder in one of the banks of his county, and his note or check will be honored by any business house there. While others were talking or debating over second-hand doctrines learned by rote, this strong son of nature had found himself and solved his own problem. I might tell you the story of another man of our race who began his successful business life in the hollow of a tree for his home, without furniture or bed clothing. But that tree and the land on which it stood were his own. You had better begin life in a hollow tree and be a man, than begin it in a rented house and be a mere tool, the imitation of a man. If you were to go into the western part of this country, you would find it filled with men of the highest culture, profound scholarship, and enduring wealth, whose ancestors a few generations ago began life in a dugout, in a hay loft, or in a hole in the side of a mountain. Young men and young women, there is no escape. If we would be great and good and useful, we must pay the price. And remember that when we get down to the fundamental principles of truth, nature draws no color line. I do not want to startle you when I say it, but I should like to see during the next 50 years every colored minister and teacher whose work lies outside the large cities, armed with a thorough knowledge of theoretical and practical agriculture, in connection with his theological and academic training. This, I believe, should be so, because the race is an agricultural one, and because my hope is that it will remain such. Upon this foundation almost every race in history has got its start. With cheap lands, a beautiful climate, and a rich soil, we can lay the foundation of a great and powerful race. The question that confronts us is whether we will take advantage of this opportunity. In a recent number of the New York Independent, Reverend Russell H. Conwell, the pastor of the great Temple Baptist Church in Philadelphia, a church that has a membership of 3,000 persons, tells of the pastor of a small country church in Massachusetts, who, in perplexity at the eternally recurring question of how to make his church pay its expenses, asked Mr. Conwell's advice. I advised him, Mr. Conwell says, to study agricultural chemistry, dairy farming, and household economy. I meant the advice seriously, and he took it seriously. He made his studies, and he made them thoroughly. On the Sunday when he preached his first practical sermon, which was the outgrowth of his helpful learning, its topic was scientific manures, with appropriate scriptural allusions. He had just 17 listeners. These 17, however, were greatly interested. Later on, they discussed the remarkable departure with their friends who had not attended the service. The result was that within 5 Sundays the church was packed with worshippers who had discovered that heaven is not such a long distance from earth after all. In the present condition of our race, what an immense gain it would be if from every church in the vast agricultural region of the South there could be preached every Sunday 2 sermons on religion, and a lesson or lecture given on the principles of intelligent agriculture, on the importance of the ownership of land, and on the importance of building comfortable homes. I believe that if this policy could be pursued, instead of the now too often poorly clothed, poorly fed, and poorly housed ministers, with salaries ranging from $100 to $300 a year, we should soon have communities and churches on their feet to such an extent that hundreds of ministers who now live at a dying race would be supported in a manner commensurate with the dignity of the profession. Not only this, but such a policy would result in giving the ministry such an ideal of the dignity of labour and such a love for it that the minister's own home and garden and farm would be constant object lessons for his followers, and at the same time sources from which he could draw support, which would make him in a large measure independent. One of the most successful and most honoured ministers I know is a man who owns and cultivates 50 acres of land. This land yields him an income sufficient to live on each year. This man's note or cheque is gladly honoured at the bank. Because of his independence, he leads his people instead of having to cater to their whims. It may be suggested that what I plead for has not been done by others after this fashion. It was done in the early years of the settlement of New England, and persevered in by the ministers there until the people of the country had become sufficiently prosperous to support their ministers suitably. Besides, if one race of people, or one individual, is simply to follow in the steps of another, no progress would ever be possible in the world. Let us remember that no other race of people ever had such a problem to work out as we have. What I have tried to say to you tonight about agricultural life may be said with equal emphasis about city occupations. Show me the race that leads in work, in wood and in metal, in the building of houses and factories, and in the constructing and operating of machinery, and I will show you the race that in the long run moulds public thought, that controls government, that leads in commerce, in the sciences, in the arts, and in the professions. What we should do in all our schools is to turn out fewer job seekers and more job makers. Anyone can seek a job, but it requires a person of rare ability to create a job. If it may seem to some of you that what I have been saying overlooks the development of the race in morals, ethics, religion, and statesmanship, my answer would be this. You might as well argue that because a tree is planted deep down in Mother Earth, because it comes in contact with clay and rocks and sand and water, that through its graceful branches, its beautiful leaves, and its fragrant blossoms, it teaches no lesson of truth, beauty, and divinity. You cannot plant a tree in air and have it live. Try it. No matter how much we may praise its proportions and enjoy its beauty, it dies unless its roots and fibers touch and have their foundation in Mother Earth. What is true of the tree is true of a race. End of chapter 34. Getting Down to Mother Earth. Recording by Luke Sartor. Griffith, New South Wales. Of character building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 35. a penny saved. A large proportion of you, for one reason or another, will not be able to return to this institution after the close of the present year. On that account, there are some central thoughts which I should like to impress upon your minds this evening, and which I wish you to take with you into the world, whether you go out from the school as graduates or whether you go as undergraduates. I have often spoken to you about the matter of learning to economize your time, to save your time, the matter of trying to make the most of every minute and hour of your existence. And I have often spoke to you about the hurtful reputation which a large proportion of the people of our race get in one way or another because of this seeming inability to put a proper value upon time, or a proper value upon the importance of keeping one's word in connection with obligations. You know to what a large extent the feeling prevails, whether justly or unjustly, that as a people we cannot be depended upon to keep our word, that if we are hired to work in a mill or a factory, we work until we have got $3 or $4 in wages ahead, and then go on an excursion, or go to town, and do not return to work until what we have earned has been consumed. And so, in one way or another, a large proportion of us get the reputation that we cannot be depended upon for faithful, regular, efficient service, and that hurts the race. Wherever you go, we wish you by your own actions, by your advice, by your influence, to try and disprove and counteract that hurtful reputation. You can do this in the most efficient manner by yourselves being the highest possible example. The people who succeed are, very largely, those who learn to economize time in the ways I have referred to, and those who also have learned to save not only time, but money. Now this may seem to you a very materialistic thought for me to emphasize this evening, the saving of money. But to us, as a race, it is of vital importance. I have heard it expressed recently, on several occasions, that the Negro was becoming too much materialized, too much industrialized. Too much attention, it has been said, is given to the material side of life. Now it seems to me that I have as yet seen very little that need arouse our fears in that direction. I am not able to understand how a race that does not own a single steam railroad, that does not own a single streetcar line, that owns hardly a bank, that does not own a single block of houses in a large city, I am not able to understand how such a race as this is in danger of becoming materialized. When you get millions of dollars in banks, when you get millions of dollars invested in railroad stocks, when you get other millions invested in streetcar lines, or in the control of large factories, great plantations, or in other great industrial enterprises in the South, then I shall say that there are signs of your becoming too materialistic, of your getting to be too rich. But I do not see any such signs yet. And until we do see such signs, we can rest ourselves in peace, I think, so far as that danger is concerned. But there is a certain influence of money that I do not think we emphasize enough. In the first place, the getting hold of money, the getting hold of a competency, ensures us the possession of certain influences that we can get in no other way. In order to get hold of the spiritually best and highest things in life, there are certain material things that we are compelled to have first. In the first place, the getting hold of money and the saving of this money will assure the possession of decent, comfortable houses to live in. No person can do his best work, or can be of the greatest service to himself and to his fellow beings, until he is able to live in a decent, comfortable house. You will not be ready for life until you own such a house, whether you live in it or not. Even if you own such a house and rent it out, you are that much more of a man. I often hear people say that they do not own a house or property because they do not expect to live long in this place or that place. I have known such people to move 6 times in 6 years. They never will own a house, simply because they have got into the habit of giving excuses instead of trying to get to own a home. The possession of a decent house ensures us a certain amount of proper comfort. No person can do the best work, can think well, can get along well, unless he has a certain amount of comfort. And, I may add, a certain amount of good, nourishing food, well cooked. The person who is not sure where he is going to get his breakfast, or the one who is not sure where he is going to get the money to pay his next week's board, is the individual who cannot do the best work, whether the work be physical, mental, or spiritual. The possession of money enables us to be sure that we are going to have comfortable clothing enough to keep the body warm and vigorous and in good, healthy condition. The possession of money enables us to get to the point where we can do our part in the building of schoolhouses, churches, hospitals. It enables us to do our part in all these directions. Money not only enables us to get upon our feet in these material directions, but it has another value. The getting of it develops foresight on our part. People cannot get money without learning to exercise forethought, without planning today for tomorrow, this week for the next week, and this year for the next year. People cannot get hold of money, or at least cannot keep hold of it, who have not learned to exercise self-control. They must be able to say no. I want you students, when you go out from here, to be able to say no. I want you to be able to go by a store and, as you notice the things in that store, whether candy or spring hats, or whatever it is that attracts you, to be able, notwithstanding the fact that you have the money in your pockets to buy, to exercise a self-control that will enable you to pass these things by and save your money, to invest it in a home. Persons cannot get hold of money without learning to exercise economy, without learning to make everything go just as far as it is possible to make it go. Then again, the getting of money enables a person to become a good, steady, safe citizen. The people who kill and are killed, 9 times out of 10, whether they are black or white, are people who do not own a home, who do not have money in the bank. They are people who live in their gripsacks. They are gripsack leaders. If their gripsacks are in Montgomery tonight, there is their home. If they are in Opelika the next night, there is their home that night. There are numbers of these people who have no home except their gripsacks. Now I don't want you to go out from here to be that kind of men and women. I want to see you own land. I want to see you own a decent home. And let me say right here that your home is not decent or complete until it contains a good, comfortable bathtub. Of the two, I believe I would rather see you own a bathtub without a house than a house without a bathtub. If you get the tub, you are sure to get the house later. So when you go out from here, buy a bathtub, even if you cannot afford to buy anything else. The possession of money, the having of a bank account, even if small, gives us a certain amount of self-respect. An individual who has a bank account walks through a street so much more erect. He looks people in the face. The people in the community in which he lives have a confidence in him and a respect for him, which they would not have if he did not possess the bank account. Now, one great mistake that we make in striving to reach these things is that we keep putting off beginning. The young man says that he will begin when he gets married. The young woman says that she will begin when she gets dressed well enough, or gets a little further on in life. Yielding to this temptation or to that, they keep putting off beginning to save. It makes one sick at heart, as he goes into the cities, to see young men on Sunday afternoons paying $2 or $3 for a hack or carriage to take young women out to drive, when in too many cases the men do not earn a salary of more than $4 a week. Young women don't go driving with such men. A man who goes driving on a salary of $4 a week cannot own a home or possess a bank account. When you are asked to go to drive by such a man as that, tell him you would rather he put his money in the bank, because you know he is not able to afford to spend it in that way. I like to see people comfortably dressed and neatly dressed, but there is no sadder sight than to see young men and women yielding to the temptation to spend all they earn upon clothes. Then, when they die, in many, many cases, somebody has to pass around a hat to take up a collection in order that they may be decently put away. Do not make that mistake. Resolve that no matter how little you may earn, you will put a part of the money in the bank. If you earn $5 a week, put $2 in the bank. If you earn $10, save 4 of them. Put the money in the bank. Let it stay there. When it begins to draw interest, you will find that you will appreciate the value of money. A little while ago I was in the city of New Bedford, the city which was formerly the home of Mrs. Hetty Green, who is said to be the richest woman in the world. I want to tell you a story about her that was told me by a gentleman who lived in New Bedford, and who knew Mrs. Green when she lived there. For many years, they had in New Bedford no savings bank that would take a very small deposit. Finally, a 5-cent savings bank was opened there. Just after this had been done, Mrs. Green told this gentleman that she was glad they had opened a 5-cent bank, so that now she would be able to put that amount in and have it draw interest. You who are here do not think about 5 cents as a sum to be saved. You think of it only as money to buy peanuts and candy, or cheap ribbons, or cheap jewelry. On last Sunday evening, I was in the home of a gentleman in New York who has in his family a girl who is now only 18 years old, and who, when she came to this country a few years ago and went to work in this family as a maid, could not speak a word of English. This girl now has $1,500 in the bank. Think of it! A young woman coming to this country poor and unable to speak a word of English has saved in a short time $1,500. I wonder how many of you, 5 years from now, will have $1,500 in the bank or in some other safe kind of property. The civilization of New England and of other such prosperous regions rests more, perhaps, upon the savings banks of the country than upon any other one thing. You ask where the wealth of New England is. It is not in the hands of millionaires. It is in the hands of individuals who have a few hundreds or a few thousands of dollars put safely away in some bank or banks. You will find that the savings banks of New England and of all countries that are prosperous are filled with the dollars of poor people, dollars aggregating millions in all. We cannot get upon our feet as a people until we learn the saving habit, until we learn to save every nickel, every dime, and every dollar that we can spare. End of chapter 35. A Penny Saved. Recording by Luke Sartor. Griffith, New South Wales. of character building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 36. Growth. I want to impress upon you this evening the importance of continued growth. I very much wish that each one of you might imagine this evening your father and your mother to be looking at you and examining into every act of your life while here. I wish that you might feel, as it were, their very heart throbs. I wish that you might realize, perhaps as you have never realized before, how anxious they are that you should succeed here. I wish that you could know how many prayers they send up day after day, that your school life may be more and more successful as one day succeeds another, that you may grow to be successful, studious, strong men and women who will reflect credit upon yourselves and honor upon your families. Each one of you must have had some thoughts about those who are anxious about you, some thought for those persons whose hearts are very often bowed down in anxiety because they fear your school life here will not be useful, not only for your own sake, but for the sake of those who are near and dear to you, those who have done more for you than anybody else. I want you to make up your minds that this year is going to be the best one of your lives. I want you to resolve that you are going to put into this year the hardest and the most earnest work that you have ever done in your life, to resolve that this is going to be the greatest, the most courageous, and the most sinless year of life that you have ever lived. I want you to make up your minds to do this, to decide that you are going to continually grow, and grow more tomorrow than today. There are but two directions in this life in which you can grow, backward or forward. You can grow stronger or you can grow weaker. You can grow greater or smaller, but it will be impossible for you to stand still. Now, in regard to your studies, your lessons, I want you to make up your minds that you are going to be more and more thorough in your lessons each day you remain here, that you are going to so discipline yourselves that each morning will find you in the recitation rooms with your lessons more thoroughly and more conscientiously prepared for the day's work than they were for the work of the day before. I want you to make up your minds that you are going to be more nearly perfect, are going to put more manly and womanly strength into the preparation of your lessons each day, that you may be more useful. Then you will find yourselves wanting to grow, I hope. You will find yourselves learning the dignity of labor, and that no class of people can get up and stay up, can be strong and useful and respected, until they learn that there is no disgrace in any form of labor. I hope you are learning that labor with the hand, in any form whatever, is not disgraceful. I hope that you are learning day by day that all kinds of labor, whether with the mind or with the hand, are honorable, and that people only disgrace themselves by being and keeping in idleness. I want you to go forward by thoroughness in your work, by being more conscientious in your work, by loving your work more today than you did yesterday. If you are not growing in these respects, that is, if you are not going forward, you are going backward, and are not answering the purpose for which this institution was established, are not answering the purpose for which your parents sent you here. I want to emphasize the fact that we want you to grow in the direction of character, to grow stronger each day in the matter of character. When I say character here, I mean to use the word in its broadest sense. The institution wants to find you growing more polite to your fellows every day, as you come in contact with them, whether it be in the classroom, in the shop, in the field, in the dining room, or in your bedroom. No matter where you are, I want you to find yourselves growing more polite and gentlemanly. Notice I do not say merely that I want your teachers, those who are over you, to find you growing more polite. I want you to find yourselves so. If you are not doing this, if you are going backward, you are going in the wrong direction. I want to find you each day more thoughtful of others and less selfish. I want you to be more conscientious in your thoughts and in your work and with regard to your duty toward others. This is growing in the right direction. Not doing this is growing in the wrong direction. Nor do I want you to feel that you are to strive for this spirit of growth for this 1 year alone, or for the time that you are here. I hope that you will continue to grow in the forward direction. Then, and this is more important still, we want you to take this habit of growth, this disposition to grow in the right direction, out with you from the school, and scatter it as an influence for good wherever you go. We want you to take it into your schools, for many of you are going to become teachers. We want you not only to begin it when you begin teaching in a humble way, but we want to see you grow and improve in it every year. We want to see you make your schoolhouses more attractive, to see you make everything in connection with your schools and your teaching better and stronger, to see you make a school more useful every year, that you remain as its teacher. Then, too, when you go out and get employment, no matter of what kind it may be, we want to see you grow better in that employment. We want to see you advance in ability, commanding always a larger salary, advancing in value to those who employ you. We want to see you grow in reputation for being honest, conscientious, intelligent, hard-working, no matter in what capacity you are employed. Some of you are going out to establish homes and settle down in home life. We want to see you grow in that direction. Nothing is so disheartening, there is nothing so discouraging, as to see a man or woman settle down in a home, and then not to see that home grow more beautiful, inside and outside, to see it, instead of this, each year grow dingy and dirty, because it each year receives less and less attention. We want Tuskegee students to go out from here and establish homes that will be models in every respect for those about them, homes that will show that the lives of the persons who have established them are models for the lives of those who live about them. If you do this, your lives are going to be a constant going forward, for, I repeat, your lives are going to be one thing or the other, continually going backward or continually going forward. End of chapter 36. Growth. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales. Of character building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 37. Last Words. We have come to the close of another school year. Some of you will go out from among us now, not to return. Others will go home for the summer vacation and return at the end of that for the next school year. As you go out, there is one thing that I want to especially caution you about. Don't go home and feel that you are better than the rest of the folks in your neighborhood because you have been away at school. Don't go home and feel ashamed of your parents because you think they don't know as much as you think you know. Don't think that you are too good to help them. It would be better for you not to have any education than for you to go home and feel ashamed of your parents or not want to help them. Let me tell you of one of the most encouraging and most helpful things that I have known of in connection with the life of our students after they leave this institution. I was in a southern city and going about among the homes of the people of our race. Among these homes I noticed one which was so neat looking that it was conspicuous. I asked the person who was with me, "How is it that this house is in such good condition, looks so much better than some of the others in the neighbourhood?" "It is like this," said the man who was accompanying me. "The people who live there have a son, whom they sent to your school, at considerable self-denial to themselves. This young man came home from school a few weeks ago. For some time after he came back, he did not have work to keep him busy, and so he employed his spare time in fixing up his parents' home. He fixed the roof and chimney, put new palings on the fence where they were needed, and did such things as that. Then he got a stock of paint and painted the house thoroughly, 2 coats outside and in. That is why the place looks so neat." Such testimony as that is very helpful. It shows that the students carry out from here the spirit which we try to inculcate. Another thing, go home and lead a simple life. Don't give the impression that you think education means superficiality and dress. Be polite to white and coloured people both. It is possible for you, by paying heed to this, to do a great deal toward securing and preserving pleasant relations between the people of both races in the South. Try to have your manners in this respect so good that people will notice them and ask where you have been, at what school you learned to be so polite. You will find that politeness counts for a great deal, not only in helping you to get work, but in helping you to keep it. Don't be ashamed to go to church and Sunday school, to the Young Men's Christian Association and the Christian Endeavour Society. Show that education has only deepened your interest in such things. Have no going backward. Be clean in your person, your language, and in your thoughts. It seems appropriate during these closing days of the school year to re-emphasize, if possible, that for which the institution stands. We want to have every student get what we have, in our egotism, perhaps, called the Tuskegee spirit. That is, to get hold of the spirit of the institution. Get hold of that for which it stands, and then spread that spirit just as widely as possible, and plant it just as deeply as it is possible to plant it. In addition to the members of our graduating class, we have each year a large number of students who go out to spend their vacations. Some of these will return at the close of vacation, but some, for various reasons, will not return. Whether you go out as graduates, whether you go out to return or not to return, it is important that all of you get hold of the Tuskegee spirit, the spirit of giving yourselves, in order that you may help lift up others. In no matter how small a degree it may be, see that you are assisting someone else. Now, after a number of years' experience, the institution feels that it has reached a point where it can, with some degree of authority, give advice as to the best way in which you can spend your life. In the first place, as to your location, the place where you shall work, I very much hope that the larger part of the students who go out from Tuskegee will choose the country districts for their place of work, rather than the large cities. For one thing, you will find that the larger places are much better supplied with workers and helpers than is true of the towns. and especially of the country districts. The cities are better supplied with churches and schools, with everything that tends to uplift people, and they are at the same time much more prolific of those agencies which tend to pull people down. Notwithstanding this latter fact, the greater portion, by far, of those who need help live in the country districts. I think a census report will show that 80% of our people are to be found in the country and small towns. I advise you, then, to go into the country and the towns, rather than into the cities. Then, as to the manner of work, you must make up your minds, in the first place, as I have said before, that you are going to make some sacrifice, that you are going to live your lives in an unselfish way, in order that you may help someone. Go out with a spirit that will not allow you to become discouraged when you have opposition, when you meet with obstacles to be overcome. You must go with a determination that you are going to succeed in whatever undertaking you have entered upon. I do not attempt to give you specific advice as to the kind of work you shall do, but I shall say that in a general way I believe that you can accomplish more good, and perhaps this will hold good for the next 50 years here in the South, by taking a country school for your nucleus. Take 3 months' school, and gradually impress upon the people of the community the need of having a longer school. Get them to add 1 month to 3 months, and then another month, until they get to the point where they will have 6, 7, or 8 months of school in a year. Then get them to where they will see the importance of building a decent schoolhouse, getting out of the one-room log cabin schoolhouse, and of having suitable apparatus for instruction. There are 2 things you must fix your mind on: the building of a suitable schoolhouse, and the arousing in the people, at the same time, a spirit that will make them support your efforts. In order to do this, you must go into the country with the idea of staying there for some time at least. Plant yourself in the community, and by economical living, year by year, manage to buy land for yourself on which to build a nice and comfortable home. You will find that the longer you stay there, the more the people will give you their confidence, and the more they will respect and love you. I find that many of our graduates have done excellent work by having a farm in connection with their schools. This is true also of many who did not remain here to graduate. I have in mind such a man. He has been teaching school in one of the counties of this state for 7 or 8 years. He has lengthened the school year to 8 months. He has a nice cottage with 4 rooms in it, and a beautiful farm of 40 acres. This man is carrying out the Tuskegee idea. There will be some of you who can spend your life to better advantage by devoting it to farming than to any other industry. I speak of farming particularly because I believe that to be the great foundation upon which we must build for the future. I believe that we are coming to the point where we are going to be recognized for our worth in the proportion that we secure an agricultural foundation. Throughout the South, we can give ourselves in a free, open way to getting hold of property and building homes, in a way that we cannot do in any other industry. In farming, as in teaching, no matter where you go, remember to go with the Tuskegee spirit. I want the boys to go out and do as Mr. N. E. Henry is doing. I want the girls to go out and do as Miss Anna Davis and Miss Lizzie Wright are doing. I want you to go out into the country districts and build up schools. I would not advise you to be too ambitious at first. Be willing to begin with a small salary and work your way up gradually. I have in mind one young man who began teaching school for $5 a month, another who began teaching in the open air under a tree. Then, too, I want you to go out in a spirit of liberality toward the white people with whom you come in contact. That is an important matter. When I say this, I do not mean that you shall go lowering your manhood or your dignity. Go in a manly way, in a straightforward and honourable way, and then you will show the white people that you are not of a belittling race, that the prejudice which so many people possess cannot come among you and those with whom you work. If you can extend a helping hand to a white person, feel just as happy in doing so as in helping a black person. In the sight of God, there is no colour line, and we want to cultivate a spirit that will make us forget that there is such a line anywhere. We want to be larger and broader than the people who would oppress us on account of our colour. No one ever loses anything by being a gentleman or a lady. No person ever lost anything by being broad. Remember that if we are kind and useful, if we are moral, if we go out and practice these traits, no matter what people say about us, they cannot pull us down. But on the other hand, if we are without the spirit of usefulness, if we are without morality, without liberality, without economy and property, without all those qualities which go to make a people and a nation great and strong, no matter what we may say about ourselves and what other people may say about us, we are losing ground. Nobody can give us those qualities merely by praising us and talking well about us. And when we possess them, nobody can take them from us by speaking ill of us. End of chapter 37. Last words. End of Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales.